Wincinnati Pod talking Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins contracts. Did they get screwed?
It's an exciting time to be a Bengals fan.
Welcome to the Wincinnati Pod. I am rocking this thing solo right now. Shout out to my guy Ace. He had to do some things with the family. He will be on probably later on in the show. But before we even get to that, want to just welcome everybody out. Make sure you send this out to someone right now. Make sure you show everybody in the world that the Wincinnati Pod is one of the greatest pods that has ever existed, and tell them all the Bengals fans come and check us out. But I'm really, really appreciative to be in this spot. We've had a lot of good things happen in Bengals. So I'm glad that you guys are here to rock out with us. We have a very special guest tonight. Our guest is going to be Andre Perrotta, cap specialist, one of my friends, also has so many other things that he dabbles and gets into as well, involving Bengals and just football, lawyer stuff, all that good stuff. Without further ado, I want to welcome Andre to the stage in the Wincinnati Pod.
This is great to join you, man. I appreciate the invite as always.
Yes, sir. I think it's been a little while. I don't know when the last time you've been on, but I feel like behind the scenes, sometimes people do ask me, they'd be like, man, Zim, like you're starting to really get on, you're starting to really break it down. I say, hey, look, I got a little help. So my secret formula all this time is if I got any questions, I make sure I run anything by my guy Andre Perrotta for like the last probably 4+ years at least. So I'm really happy that you're on tonight.
I'm happy to be here. I love being on. It's been a while. It's been maybe a couple years, but yeah, I always appreciate coming on with you. Bummed I'm going to miss Ace a little bit, but I love joining you guys and always talking Bengals contracts and salary cap, all the fun stuff.
Yeah. As we're recording this Tuesday night, 8:05, the news of Stefon Diggs gets a deal. I haven't seen the particulars on that deal, but that's something that broke out. I don't know if you have any info on that. I don't know if you have any comparisons or anything that we want to even look at to say that even has anything to do with maybe a Tee Higgins contract.
The latest reports I saw were 3 years up to $69 million. So that's an up to amount. So that deal's going to have some incentives in it. So that's a $23 million a year on average contract. Stefon tore his ACL last year. That's a good deal for him. I read there are only about $26 million in guarantees. So that's probably a 2-year deal at best. And we'll see what the base value is. I wouldn't be surprised if it's much lower than the $23 million, because again, that's an up to amount. That's the agent tax or the agent speak fluff that they put on those initial reports, but it really has no bearing. He's in his own kind of that middle tier receiver market. T and Jamar's at the top of it, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot. And then T is, at least the next couple of years, is right in there in the top 5. So it really has no bearing. A pretty decent deal for Stefon, still on the market now, but now he's catching balls from Drake May instead of Josh Allen. Or I guess he was down in Houston last year with CJ Stroud. But a new home for him. He's back in the AFC East.
Yeah. I thought I brought that one up too because for the longest, Stefon Diggs is now 31 years old. So one of the big things that have been going on, and this is kind of hit, I think over the weekend, you and me I hadn't had a chance to talk to you about it, but I saw a couple of your tweets. But the big concept of what I think most of this show is going to be about is like, when people started bringing up the Tee Higgins contract. Now, only reason I referenced Stefon Diggs, it happened today. He's 31 years old. The concept that most people, like I saw Chad Johnson talk about, not Terrell Owens, but Shannon Sharp and all these different people that have been on TV, they're like, why would this guy take a deal at his age that doesn't have guarantees? And this is something that we have talked about privately as far as like other ways to supplement the second-year guarantees. But if you can, try to break it down, the particulars on the Tee Higgins contract, just for anybody that's kind of like living in the cave that doesn't know anything about the Tee Higgins contract.
Sure. So you actually had you mentioned too Shannon Sharp, obviously a Hall of Fame player, and then I think Chase Daniel, former backup quarterback. He's on a couple pods. And I like Chase. I'm
Big
not
Chief
singling
fan.
anybody out, but I think the idea has been by the national media. Well, first let me back up. First they said, well, the Bengals will never do it. They're too cheap to get it done, and then the deals get done, and then the particulars come out, and they're like, well, the Bengals screwed T over. Why would T sign this deal? T already, I will say it is a unique guarantee structure. The Bengals did though break precedent for T. They've guaranteed money into the second year, into 2026. So in fact, the way that deal is structured, he has a $10 million roster bonus that's due next March, a 2026 $10 million roster bonus. That's already guaranteed. It wasn't guaranteed on the day of signing, but the Bengals put a contingency on there in the contract. So it's already guaranteed because enough days have already passed since he signed it last Tuesday. They signed that deal a week ago, the 18th of March. So, and then when we get to the first day of the third or fifth day of the next league year, so next March, his base salary, which is another 10.9 million, that will fully guarantee. That's not guaranteed, even partially guaranteed now, but that'll vest into a full guarantee next March. But he also got $15 million as a roster bonus, which effectively works as a signing bonus since he got it the day of signing. And then he got another $5 million roster bonus. I think he actually earned that today. We can talk about how the Bengals didn't prorate that second one, so they kind of ate more cap space than they needed to, and frankly, it was unnecessary in my opinion. We can talk about that later. But to the initial point of, did the Bengals screw T? I forget the term that Chase Daniel used. He said the Bengals, effectively they screwed him over by taking this. First of all, T's his own person, and the fact that he fired David Mulugeta, who's a great agent but a tough negotiator, and he hired Jamar's agent, Rocky Arsenal. Clearly, to me, that means he gave Rocky a directive, a mandate, effectively, to get a deal done with the Bengals as best as possible. So he did get year two guarantees, which the Bengals haven't done except for Joe and Jamar. But Joe and Jamar are top of the league, top of the position, top of the league at their positions, right? T is up there too. But the question I had was, were the Bengals going to break their precedent and offer and give T year two guarantees? They did that. They structured it in a weird way where they didn't fully vest on the day of signing, but they're guaranteed now, and the base salary for next year will guarantee on the first couple of days of the new league year. So this idea that there was no guaranteed money this year, that's patently false. There was guaranteed. You got a signing bonus,
Right.
and then the March roster bonus for next year is already fully guaranteed. And moreover, if the Bengals didn't even guarantee those, there is no way that Tee Higgins is only seeing 1 year of that deal. To
Right.
put it into context, when the Bengals signed Trey Waynes in 2020, the COVID year, he signed for a $14 million on average deal. That was a 3-year, $42 million deal. That deal had $15 million in guaranteed, all in a signing bonus. The
Mm-hmm.
Bengals kept Trey on the roster in 2021, their Super Bowl year. He was playing special team snaps. So the Bengals paid Trey Waynes, even though that contract only had 15 million guaranteed, they paid him 30 million over 2 years. So this issue of guarantees, they're important for the player. I'm not saying they're not important,
Right.
but sometimes I think you can get hung up where the structure of the deal can be in a way that the team is not going to cut the player, right? So T is guaranteed to at least see these 3 years. I'm talking just from a practical perspective, not even the true
Right.
guarantees. He's going to see at least 2. He's going to see 3 years of this deal. And if I were a betting man, I would say that T is exceedingly likely to see all 4 years of this deal.
Right.
So it's a strong deal for T. And if you want to talk about the cash flow, one last point I'll say, just to the people who say that T got screwed over here. There are guarantees in year 2, like we said, but if you just look at the cash flow, um, who's the highest on average? Jamar is now the highest paid receiver. Jamar is also going to earn the most cash next year of all receivers. He's going to earn 41.17 million. You know who the second highest earning in cash is this year in 2025? It's Tee Higgins. Tee Higgins is scheduled to earn 35.9 million. That's number 2 of all
Right.
receivers next. Now you potentially have Garrett Wilson later this summer getting an extension. He's extension eligible. Drake London too, but I don't think their cash is going to be that high in year 1, even if they get a deal done now. So his year 1 cash is the second highest in the league. Okay, how about his next 2 years cash? 2025 and 2026. Tee Higgins is top 5 in cash the next 2 years. He's at 58.9. That assumes, of course, he hits all the per game roster bonuses. He does have a lot of money tied up in per game bonuses. That just means you have to be an active on the active roster on game days, active 48. He
Right.
has 2 million tied up in that. But if he hits all those roster bonuses, the next 2 years, the top 5 paid receivers, they go Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf is at 60 million cash, And rounding out the top 5 is Tee Higgins at 58.9.
Jesus.
You saying that's a bad deal? And then we want to go 1 year more than that, 3 years, he falls into the top 6 because Tyreek Hill jumps him to number 5. But there's a good chance that year is not guaranteed for Tyreek Hill in 2027. So he may not see that. And then T. Higgins will vault into the top 5. That, of course, assumes that Garrett Wilson, Drake London, maybe even Terry McLaurin, who may get an extension this year, they may jump him. But he's going to be at worst in the top 10 of cash over the next 3 years. This year, he's top 2 with Jamar. And then the next year, or the next 2 years, he's top 5. So it is a strong deal for T in Cincinnati. Could he have gotten more money on the open market next year? Of course. But you read what you had Mama T on last week. I saw that interview. She was great. And she even wrote a note today or yesterday, it was on Bengals.com. His goal was to play with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and get paid handsomely, right? Could he have gotten...
That was very clear to everybody when he switched agents, and I thought that was like a national thing at some point, but I don't know if they ever caught on to that point. So me and Ace on our show made it a point to say, hey, look, you don't switch agents if you don't have the intention of maybe working with this team. There were a couple of points that you just said in there that I do want to talk about.
Yeah,
I forget who the write-up was, but I think a lot of this happened from the original, because I remember people retweeting it and quote retweeting the fact that it said that there were no guarantees in the second year. And I think the way that you're breaking it down, you're talking about the bonuses and the cash flow of those year 1 and year 2. And I think the people that are objectively looking at it are looking at just the overall language. And I forget who that was that wrote that. You know what I'm talking about? It's like when the particulars first came out, there was one that said there's no guarantees.
Yeah, no, that's wrong. I think it may have been Joel Corey. Joel Corey's a former agent. He used to represent many, but it may not have been the Joel Corey article. That was on CBS Sports. Mike Florio had a breakdown, but Florio had a bunch of errors in that article.
Yeah, I'm not even
there are year 2 so there are year 2 guarantees in that deal.
Yeah.
Did they vest on the day when he signed last Tuesday on the 18th? No, they vested 3 days after that signing. So that's a way
it's
also
a crazy formality that people are not like, you know what I mean? Like that one little instance. Another point that I have to touch on is the part that you said when you were talking about the likelihood of it. And there are 2 different points to this. I don't know when the top of Bengals, hierarchy, or I don't know when the national media started running with this. And maybe you can help me with this. But as long as I've been a Bengals fan, losing players or star players has not been the problem. The issue had been for a lot of players probably paying them too long. I don't know when it switched over. I guess with Jesse Bates, it may have switched over. But as long as I remember, there were guys like Pecco, and you could argue Dunlap, Geno Atkins, AJ Green, all these guys that got paid after the fact. And I remember for like a decade, everybody saying we should be like the Patriots. You should cut ties and everything like that. I don't know when that began, but the part where you were talking about, if I'm a betting man, I'm thinking he's going to play like 4 years of the deal. And I think someone like a Rocky Arsenal is someone that can propose that or show that to T or show examples of that, because people say that online very rarely. And I thought you saying that just now, I don't know, like losing Jesse Bates, I don't know if that just totally changed everybody's like opinion of this. And I continuously ask people this: what were the stars that left the Bengals? Like Jesse Bates is a very good player that was a safety. He's not a star player in the National Football League. And this concept that they were just going to let him walk and all this stuff like that, I just don't know where people were getting this from, because the traditional Bengals that I grew up watching or whatever, they continuously had paid their players and probably paid them too much. Welcome to the show, Ace Boogie. How you doing tonight, Ace?
I'm good, fam. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. And here, Andre schooling these people on the particulars of Tee Higgins' contract.
Ace, I'm happy to see you, buddy. I'm glad you're. I'm glad you made it.
I'm happy to see you, man. I've been listening on the way back from basketball practice of Andre taking them to school on his Tee Higgins contract, talking about how much guarantees there actually is in this thing. I think I heard you say that he's the second highest paid. He's going to be the second highest paid wide receiver
in cash
this season
this year.
The next year.
Next year he'll be top 5. Next year he's number 5
next
in cash over the next 2 years. So in cash. So that's. I mean, Chase, and it was just in reference to Chase Daniel saying the Bengals, why would T sign this deal? The Bengals, I forget the term he used, but essentially they did him over with it. They did him dirty. Come on. I mean,
He's a Chiefs fan, Andre. Don't buy
No,
it. Like, you know what I mean? You could be respectful. I'm a little bit more like, listen, that guy's a Chiefs fan, and the brutal honesty is a lot of those people that say the stuff like that, he's saying they just don't want to they don't want to play a Bengals team with Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase. So they're trying to figure out and formulate different ways to make the Bengals feel like they're less than for doing everything that everybody told us that we wouldn't be able to do.
That's a good point. If I can rate to that last point about people not wanting, because I think there's jealousy to a certain point. I would say right now that is the core, right? It's Joe, Jamar, and T. I can't name a better trio, a more elite offensive trio in the entire league. And you can include running backs or whatever. I think the next closest is Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts, who's a good quarterback, but Joe clears Jalen Hurts as a quarterback. Jamar is better than A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's a great receiver. Jamar is a better receiver than A.J. Saquon Barkley is probably, better as just overall talent better than T, but T is an elite receiver still. So that is the closest trio that I can think of in the entire league. We can go team by team, division by division. There is not a better offensive trio. You can include running backs. Maybe the Ravens with Lamar. Lamar's an MVP, great quarterback. I would take Burrow, but Lamar's a great quarterback. Derrick Henry's a great running back, getting up there in age. But Zay Flowers? A good receiver, but Jamar clears Jay Flowers. T is a better receiver than Jay Flowers. Different skill set, of course, but you cannot name a better offensive trio than the elite trio of Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Tee Higgins. Do they have a lot of other stuff that needs to get done? Of course. The Eagles, of course, have a better offensive line, but that trio legitimately gives them a chance to win any game that they're in. If those three are playing any game, they have a chance to win that game, irrespective of how terrible the defense is, irrespective of how porous the guards are, which hopefully they do address. But that trio, and to get T locked up to a fourth year, again, that's a non-guaranteed year, of course. But the Bengals are going to honor that contract if T is playing well. So the fact that he does have year two guarantees, like we talked about, that foundation for the next 4 years. Jamar's here 5, and then I think Jamar gets another extension. Hopefully T even 2. Burrow will get another extension, maybe 2 more too, playing into his 30s. You cannot name a more elite offensive trio in the entire league. It's a trio that gives you a chance in every game, but it legitimately gives you a chance at a Super Bowl. And so I just hope the team, we can talk about how the Bengals didn't prorate. They essentially ate almost $12 million by not prorating some money. That's a different matter, because I think bigger picture wise, it's more important that they got these deals done now. And so we're not dealing with what we're dealing with Trey, which I think Trey ultimately comes back, and we could talk about that too. But we're not dealing with another hold-in with Jamar. We're not dealing with T's on a second franchise tag, and now OTAs start next month, and he's still unsigned. Or now we get into the summer. Right. Remember, Justin Jefferson signed in June. Yes. We got these two monsters on the outside already locked up. These guys are absolute dogs on the outside. They give you T would be a number 1 on any other team, and I like how Jamar in the presser said it's not 1A. It's 1. 1 and 1, and those guys are, that foundation is the envy pretty much of the entire league, to the point that I was trying to make earlier of you saying Chase Daniel being a Chief. I think a lot of that envy, because you don't think Patrick Mahomes would love to have T and Jamar?
They tried. I don't know if you saw Goodberry in the crowd, or you talk about the teams like the Ravens. These are teams that the Ravens have used more draft capital on trying to get a wide receiver than any team in the National Football League. So letting people tell y'all, like, this is the thing. I'm glad that Andre came on and said this. Listening to people say, like, after we got the deal done, especially like a lot of, like people that are pro Bengals, right? They've said, oh yeah, that was cool. They got the deal done, but this is a big deal. The fact that those two guys got done this early
in March
at the table together, that is a big deal. And two of the biggest arguments that I hear is the pushback on, well, why did they do the deal before? As a Bengal fan, I'm here to give context to that. And I know that people will be like, well, you're a home. Listen, last year, it wasn't a clear case. It wasn't clear. He was coming off the worst season of his career, and the franchise tag was a happy medium for both parties at the time. So I like how a lot of people right now are removing all that context of him coming off of that, because at that point, you don't know if it's a long-term deal. Maybe you do get the deal done. You could always second guess that forever. But at the time, last year, it was a lot of uncertainty around it. And then once he proved it, even though he still did miss 5 games, once he proved it, then I think they said, you know what? There's nobody else to pay. Myles Murphy's of the world didn't ball out. CTB's didn't. So a lot of the context that I see when I see it on Twitter or whatever, they remove all that stuff. Also, you bringing up the Trey Waynes and all these different things. our fans and a lot of other people need to also bring in the fact that deals like that, like the Rankins deal that went sour on them, the Trey Waynes deal that went sour on them, the Nick Scott deal that went sour. You have to also, if you're going to be fair, you have to bring in both sides of the argument, or you're operating in bad faith. You have to have a conversation with someone like me where you're telling me about like, well, I wish they would have did this. And I was like, yeah, well, I wish this also wouldn't have happened too, but I definitely understand where you're coming from. And I think that you saying those things was a big major part of what I think people are kind of missing out on the Tee Higgins and the validity of this deal and the magnitude of what's going on.
Great points. And 2 points to that. One is, you mentioned the other side about having to bring up things. One is, the Bengals always say, why don't the Bengals guarantee that year two? I mean, the players want guarantees, especially on the free agent market, right? Well, we just have a former Bengal, Chido Awuzie, who signed with a division rival today. But you know what's happening there? It's what happened with we did with Von Bell last year. Tennessee is paying the majority of his salary because they had guarantees in his contract. They still cut him, so they're eating that money. It's offset by the Ravens signed him to a 1-year deal. They're paying him the base minimum salary this year. It's about 1.255. So Tennessee is paying the difference. They're paying upwards of $5.8 million, give or take, to get up to that 7. The Bengals did that last year with Von Bell. So when you and Chido and Von Bell, they were free agents. Chido signed, last year with Tennessee. Those guys are good players. I'm not knocking any player, but sometimes when you give year 2 guarantees you're overpaying for average on the market, and you kind of handcuff yourselves by doing that. I'm not defending the Bengals practices overall necessarily. I'm just saying there are drawbacks to offering year 2 guarantees, and there are benefits if you don't, because you can easily get out of the contract with minimal damage. To the second point that you made about, T last year, 2023, it wasn't his best year, and the Bengals franchised him. The Bengals also, there's also the chorus you hear of, well, why didn't they extend Jamar last year? My understanding is they got very close, and the Jefferson deal kind of not held it up, but I think Jamar and Rocky were waiting for Justin to go, and Justin's deal didn't get done till the first week of June. And so now you're in the mini camp that part of the year, and then you take about a month off, and then you're in the training camp. Jamar did the hold in, but ultimately they figured it out. They got a deal done. To me, there was never a doubt. The Bengals were never not going to extend Jamar. Just because they didn't do it last year didn't mean they were not going to get back to the negotiating table, and they got the deal done.
Hold on, two different things on that. I want you to answer this because I know your time. You had to answer this on this part. What do you say to the person that says, well, they lost money because they should have signed them last year at that point?
They did. Like that's legitimate. The deal probably could have got done with Jamar at around 150 total, 150 million total. Now they're at 161, right? So that's 11 million. But the opposite of that is they got a 4th year for really cheap for Jamar. They're paying Jamar less than $5 million total last year. They got a Triple Crown season. They got the first ever season for 1,700 yards and 17 TDs. They got that for less than $5 million. Now, Jamar made him pay for that, and he deservedly so. He's got the richest non-quarterback deal. We'll wait till Micah Parsons probably breaks that later this summer. But for now, Jamar topped Myles Garrett. And I like how, the Cleveland social media team put out that picture of Garrett sacking Burrow. I like how then, less than 2 weeks later, you got Jamar topping Garrett. And, it did cost them overall, but it's $10 million total, and it's over the course of a 4-year deal when you add in his 5th-year option to it. So it's 5 years. Is it an astronomical amount that's that's not allowing them to address other areas of the roster? No, of course it's not. Could it have been cheaper last year? Yes, but it takes 2 to make a deal. And it sounds like, Jamar had no issue playing it out, betting on himself. And man, did he ever bet on himself and win that bet? So one thing that Jamar said at the press conference, which is, now there's I'm all for players getting money, get as much generational wealth as you can get. But I was encouraged to hear that Jamar saying, I'm focused on championships. Because when you play at this level, you can get generational wealth in any sport too. And in other sports, the NBA, baseball, you can get it in other professions. You don't have to play sports. But if you're at the highest of your position, like Jamar is and Joe and T is up there too, you want to win. You want to win championships. And having these guys done now, you don't think their minds are going to be 100%. They are already 100% focused on football. They got their deals locked in. No more drama with that. That is invaluable to the team as a whole to have those guys locked in and ready, because that's the ultimate goal with these guys, is to get at least one Lombardi out of this.
So before you get out of here, Andre, you talked about deals being locked in. The trade deal isn't locked in. It seems that a lot of people are trying to say, oh, the Bengals spent all this money at wide receiver. Now they can't afford defense. Is there a way for them to still afford Trey Hendrickson with the current constraints, even with them wasting the $12 million?
Great question. Of course there is. So right now, even again, they could have prorated out about 15 million, which results in about 11.75 because they didn't prorate that 15 million between T and Jamar. It adds, not adds, it kind of just sticks 11.75 million on the cap that they could have prorated.
Why would they do that?
I think I have my suspicions because I was thinking about it all weekend really, and I think they may have done it to get even more leverage with Trey, to get him at a number that they really want. Because if they lowered their cap hits this year, Trey's agent is going to point out and say, hey, you guys have way more cap money this year. So how about a really high increase in Trey? But to answer Ace's question, they have enough cap space. Right now, every team utilizes what's called off-season cap accounting, right? Because during the season, you have 53 in the practice squad. In the offseason, you have a 90-man roster. So the NFL only the CBS says you only have to count the top 51 contracts and dead money and all this stuff during the offseason. But right now, with the top 51 or 53, however you want to look at it, they have a little over 20 million in cap. They can sign not just extend Trey. They can sign to Brandon Scherff. They can sign to Will Hernandez. They can sign Dalton Reisner. They can sign to Calais Campbell. They can sign these guys. But I do want to answer Ace's question specifically. Yes, they can sign Trey. And if you look at their cash spend now, they're at 276 in cash. And you could still have some guys get cut after camp, right? Especially depending on who they draft. Like Cordell Bolson would clear 3-4 in cash and cap. Zach Moss, once he hopefully is healed officially from or fully from his neck injury, that'll clear just under 4 million in cap and cash. So with those two combined, you're almost at 8. And so I think Trey, so they did increase Jamar's cap hit this year on this deal. T's was lowered. It was lowered by a small amount. It was only a couple million. It was like 2.1 million that they lowered his cap hit this year. My suspicion is if they do get Trey's deal done, and I think they will. In fact, Jordan Schultz had a report on today that essentially a trade is off the table. And I do agree with that, but there's always the draft, and teams go crazy at the draft, and you never know if a team misses out on it is a deep edge rusher class, but if a team misses out and like Thursday night ends round 1 and a team throws a high 2 at the Bengals, would they consider it? Probably. Would they do it? I don't think they would, but you never know. I'm never discounting anything on the draft. So if he's not extended by the draft, it's like, okay, they still could do it, but they could still trade him. But I really think a trade is off the table. From a structural perspective, I think a Trey extension gets done. It actually probably increases his 2025 cap hit. But guys, remember, Trey is already on the books on the cap now for about 18.6 million because he has his he's on the books for 16 million cash, 18.6 million in cap. So even if you increase the cap by about $5 million or so, and you raise his cash, in fact, Danielle Hunter signed a 1-year extension. He's getting paid 32 million in cash. Trey is at 16, so double his cash. He's at 32 million. He ties Danielle Hunter. Give him double it plus 1 million. Give him 33 million, so he makes more than Danielle Hunter. He would be making less than T, but right now he's making as much money as BJ Hill. BJ Hill signed 3 years, 33 million, but they gave him 16 million in year 1 cash. So if you're Trey's agent, you're saying, no offense to BJ Hill, great player, but not to Trey's caliber. So you can't have Trey making 16 million like BJ is. So just double his cash, maybe even add another million. That's 33 in cap. It would affect or cash. It would effectively bump up his cap hit this year, but the Bengals can absorb that cap hit. And even adding another Brandon Scherff, there's a way to do it. There are plenty of avenues to do it. And one last thing, I will say this, not one last thing on this question. I do suspect that, when they extended Burrow, they made his base salary in 2023, the year of extension, they put it all the way down to the minimum because they gave him a $40 million signing bonus and they had another option bonus in March that was for $55 million. So they're paying him a lot of money. But they lowered his base salary. Jamar's base salary, even after this deal, is about $8 million. I would not be surprised if they get to the end of training camp and they just they convert his base to bonus. Jamar gets the same money. It's no difference to Jamar, but the Bengals would create about 5.52 million in cap space. That's right. In-season cap that they can use to, for injuries. They can roll it over to next year. I wouldn't be surprised maybe if they even do that to T. And people will say, well, if they just convert him at the end of the summer, why wouldn't they just prorate the bonus when they sign him in March?
Right.
Again, I think it's maybe because for the Trey negotiations, to get as much leverage with Trey, they want Trey back. But if you're a good agent and you're seeing that, you're going to go to the Bengals and say, hey, you got so much more cap room now. Give Trey a massive bump in 2025. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but yes, they have plenty of room to cap and cash to not only extend Trey, but then also add some pieces. Because frankly, guys, even with that great, top 3 elite talent we have on offense, we need some pieces. You guys, I follow you guys on Twitter. Obviously, we're friends. We talk about it. They need 2 guards. Lucas Patrick is a good serviceable guy, but you want him starting games? Maybe a spot starter, but I don't want him starting 17 games for us. So.
Can this all right, this is my last point because I know you got to go right now. This is the other one. This concept that they're not going all in because they didn't structure it the way that I think some people want it. I just don't get with that because they have the option to go and pull from a Burrow contract. They do have the option to convert over with the Jamar deal. They do have all these different the Volson one. I even tweeted about Volson possibly being expendable today, trading to a run-heavy team. This is a guy that has over 3,000 snaps, over 35 plus starts. As a Bengal fan, we're like, yeah, we don't need him. There's a bunch of teams that will want a Cordell Volson that has that experience at 26 years old. I think you can go move, get 3.5 just like that. So this concept that the Bengals aren't going all in because they didn't spend X amount of money or they didn't structure this wrong, I disagree with. Did you have any thoughts on that before you left?
I do think, I mean, getting the deals done, to me, shows that they're all in. They didn't let this drag out and try to get the best deal. Could they have squeezed Rocky on getting even, getting him to accept a little even less for T? Because we knew T wanted to be here, right? They probably could have drug out those negotiations. But I will say this. I don't want... Leaving 11.75 to sit on this year's cap for now, it is indefensible in the sense of, like, let's use it from a game analogy, right? Let's say the Bengals signing those guys is the equivalent of winning the AFC Championship, but we still had a couple turnovers in that AFC Championship, maybe even like a missed field goal. Those are what I equate to, like, you unnecessarily charged $11.75 million on this year's cap. But the larger point is the deals are done and the offseason is not over. A lot of these, Calais Campbell didn't sign till last June. Guys, and he was a free agent. Dalton Reisner, for whatever reason, the last two offseasons, he's been signing in the summer. Will Hernandez, I know he's coming off an ACL, but there are still guard options. The counter to that would be, well, why don't they just sign him now? Again, I think they did this strategically to get leverage with Trey, to not for Trey's agent to say, hey, you got so much more cap now. But I will say they should have prorated that money. They should have prorated it this year. But I do sense that they ultimately will because T has a high base salary. And you can just convert if they need cap space, by cut down day, because you do need to account for the practice squad and practice squad elevations weekly. You can, elevate two a week. There are ways to do it. Not even touching Burrow. Burrow's conversion this year would create 19.4. But you can convert Jamar for a 5.5, it'd be 5.52, and you can convert T for just under 10. Again, you can do that at the end of summer, so you still have that cap room. Because again, use the offseason accounting, track the cash spending. The cash spending, they're at around 276. They can extend. They will extend Trey. I think they'll get a deal done eventually. Who knows of the timing? But so it's just. I think there is. I wouldn't read too much into it as to what their cap space is right now. They have plenty of room, and there is always the possibility to do those conversions later in the summer. And maybe you'll have me back on. If not, I'll tweet it out. But I would not be shocked if they do convert Jamar and T by the end of the summer.
We are going to have to make Andre the residential cap guy here at Wincinnati pretty soon. So we're going to have to make you a contract offer, Andre.
Andre, we need to get.
They better have strong year 2 guarantees, Ace. That's all I'll say. I'll have to call Rocky. Rocky will represent me.
Look, we'll get that cash flow going up front. We'll get you squared away, cash spent early on. We're not messing around with. We'll pay ourselves back on the back end or whatever. I got one note that I did want you to see before you left out. Shout out to Michael Rolfe. He said Andre 3000 is in the house. Andre, tell everybody where they can find you at. Where can they, if they got any questions, bombard you with a whole bunch of stuff online.
Yeah, just follow me on X or Twitter or whatever it's called these days. But it's at Andre Perrotta 13. Just my name spelled out all in lowercase 13. My goal is when I tweet out contracts and CBA and all that information, it's just salary cap stuff. It's just to inform. So I'm glad people find it informative. It's just math. It's just boring. It's a legal document, the CBA, and it's just how you figure out the numbers. It's really not that complicated. I just stuff that I enjoy doing. So I'm glad and appreciative that people find it informative because that's the goal ultimately, is to inform.
We have one request. Andre does have to go. One request from my guy Mon in the crowd. He does Bengals Pulse also on his channel. Check that out too. He says, "What would a Brandon Scherff contract look like?" We're not gonna do that on the show. If you want, you could put that on. You got enough.
PFF in their previous, and some of their contracts have been way off. Some of them have been pretty on the nose. Like they had T 4 for 120. He signed 4 for 115, and that's a legit 115 for T, by the way. Not all guaranteed, of course, but that's not an up to amount. His up to amount is over 120 with incentives, so that's a base value of 115. So I would say Brandon Scherff. Scherff is probably looking for a 2-year deal. Now, if you give him a 2-year deal, no team is going to guarantee anything in that second year, so it's effectively a team option. He got paid. He was on, $10 million annually for down in Jacksonville. So, and he had a good year still pass protect. He's a little older. He was a 2015 top 5 pick in 2015. I think at now this where we are now and in the offseason, I think a 1 year like 6.5, 6 anywhere between 6 and 6.5 to 7 million can get it done. Yeah. Of course, that would be all in year one cap, of course, on those 1 year deals, unless they had a void year. And remember, 4 years ago, they did a void year with Riley Reef, who was a tackle, not a guard like Scherff, but an older tackle. They gave him a void year to split up the cap, and I could see them doing something like that with Scherff. Although if they sign Scherff, I think Cordell Volson, you mentioned a potential trade. Honestly, if I had to say, I don't think Cordell has a lot of trade value, to be honest. But you could maybe convince a team. He's a good run blocker. He struggles, of course, as we've seen in pass pro. It's not a lot of money. He's in the last year of his deal. But so if you sign Scherff, let's say even on the high end, let's say you get 7 or 7.5 million in 1 year. Cordell Volson's likely not going to be on the roster by the time cutdown comes. So you're shaving off that 3-4 from him, and you're now getting Scherff for around 4 million too if you just net out the money.
What's the dead cap on
Volson? Nothing, because he got about a less than $500,000 signing bonus, so which is the 4th year proration of that signing bonus. I think it's about a couple hundred, maybe like 100,000 at that, maybe a couple 100,000. So it's but you're saving cap and cash about 3-4. Because remember with Volson, just like with CTB on defense, his salary this year increased via what's called the PPE, the Proven Performance Escalator. And it's kind of a misnomer, the CBA. It's not performance-based. It's literally just how much you play. And to Cordell's credit, he's not very good in pass pro, especially.
35
terrible in pass pro. But he plays a lot, and they play him a lot of snaps. So he gets that Proven Performance Escalator just for seeing a lot of snaps. So we'll see if he ends up being on the roster when cutdown day comes. But they would save about 3.4 something in cash and cap. And that includes the dead money on that, because it's about a couple $100,000 on that in dead money.
Yeah, I just don't see Volson moving forward. Andre, you've been so great with your time. I know you got to go do some family stuff too. I appreciate you as always. Please make sure you follow Andre Perrotta on X. Make sure you keep up to date. He does some excellent proposals, contract stuff, and also insight. Some of the stuff that you don't hear every day on X or on social media, period. I feel like he shows another perspective that I'm a big fan of. So I really appreciate you coming on.
We appreciate you, Andre, for sure.
Ace and Zim, always a pleasure, guys. And you guys hit me up anytime. Love to join you anytime. And I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you so much. So that was Andre Perrotta, our resident cap guru here. I thought that was really good, man. There was a snippet before you had came on. There's about like a 2-minute run that I think that everybody in the world needs to hear. Because so many people talked about this contract and just that one little bit, that one little formality of like this 3-day period, they just like totally, there's like, me, I got receipts on all this stuff. I just don't feel like doing it for that. But so many people jumped the gun. And imagine somebody else doing a deal, another team, they would say, oh man, they did an excellent job. But for the Bengals, it was like, we got you. You guys are cheap. You guys are ripped off T. And I just thought, I was like, that's not right. Yeah. And
we need to make that Andre clip go viral, bro. Because I know he was spitting out there.
It should. The only reason why I probably won't is because so many people already jumped the gun and said the Bengals were cheap. So they're not going to want to retweet and make themselves look bad. But it's a really good clip that just really breaks down the guarantees in the Tee Higgins contract.
That's why we had to have him on, because I know everybody was looking at these contracts and what they mean. And for me, like, Andre is the guy when it comes to that. So I kind of always immediately check what he has to say. He's also in the past given us like scenarios for trades that they could do and stuff like that. So I just knew that with his background, legal background and everything, he was going to be able to break everything down. So I'm glad he was able to do that. I can't wait I'm going to have to go back and catch the parts that I didn't get on this. But shout out to Andre Perrotta for popping up on the show, doing this thing and talking about these contracts, which has been really the biggest thing really talked about this week, especially in the NFL, is how the Bengals were able to do these contracts. And it seemed like you said, it didn't seem genuine because Jordan Schultz is on Twitter right now talking about they're trying to pay Trey Hendrickson. So this whole the Bengals are broke thing now that they gave the receivers too much money, like that's just not true. So we can end that now. The Bengals can still, like Andre Perrotta said, still pay Trey Hendrickson. Made up a great point too, and he said, Trey's already on the books now, so increasing his number is just a little bit there. I thought he also had a really good point as why would the Bengals do this? Well, the Bengals might be doing this as a kind of position towards Trey, because if Trey is asking for 40 mil and the Bengals can come to him and say, we can't afford 40 mil as far as the cap number, that makes them look smart from that standpoint. And then you talk about the Danielle Hunter, which you kind of talked about, and everybody has mentioned that as kind of something that would help them get to that point now with Trey. And I love how he said, just give him $1 million more than Danielle Hunter. He's the same age. He's got the same accolades. So why not? And so I think, him saying that, and then the fact that the cherry on top is everybody's also saying, oh, the Bengals can't sign a guard now. They're tapped out on free agency. Andre Perrotta just told you that's not true. So they could still sign a Brandon Scherff or somebody like that right now. We might not agree with how they did it. However, there may be a method to their madness with negotiations with this happening, especially with them now saying that the trade market is kind of a dead thing now. The trade market isn't really a thing anymore with Trey, and they're concentrated on keeping Trey here. So we'll see, but I don't think the Bengals have mismanaged the cap. I don't think Andre would have been, so nice to the Bengals if they would have been mismanaging the cap and doing all of this stuff. So I think it's great that he said what he needed to say in terms of that. I always thought it was stupid with the whole Tee Higgins gave up his franchise tag to not have this year guaranteed. Like, they're not cutting Tee Higgins this offseason. Like, are we? They're not cutting him at
the bigger issue. I did want to ask him this because I don't know if you've ever seen this chart before. I forget. I think Brad Spielberger, who we've had on the show, created this chart, but it's a cap health chart. And also another motive that I've been running with is that I think it gives them a better. Now, most teams don't operate off of just solely cap the way that the Bengals do, and the Jaguars and the Bengals are like leaders in the NFL as far as dead money and dead cap, right? And so a lot of teams, this is the first all season where the Bengals are taking on a couple $1 million in dead caps from the cap removal and all these different guys that like that. But one of the things or the theory that I had, and I wanted to ask them, maybe I'll ask them on X, is that did they maybe structure this way to make sure that they still preserve? Because remember, they're acting as a traditionalist in the form of cap health in general. So one of the concepts that I thought about is that they're trying to maintain good cap health, and that's on a year-to-year basis. So if you're, doing a couple different things structurally to change it up now, do you get benefits from it from a cap perspective later? And that's something that I think could also help them. The Trey Hendrickson thing is very smart. That is a sales tactic that like if you've ever taken a sales course, one thing that you can do when you're at your end rope or whenever you want to just give people full transparency is the I just don't have it method. And once you give the buyer that option of, well, he doesn't have anything other than that, it's like, okay, well, we got to agree to terms on what you do have. And I think the Bengals are at that spot. The thing that killed me over the weekend wasn't the people that said the Bengals were cheap. I'm done with those people. Like, I don't have time for that. The one that killed me the most is people saying that them messing up the structure, which Andre and myself included agree, it's indefensible on why you would leave 11.75 like on the table in cap space that you could potentially save, right? But this concept that the Bengals would have somehow had the 11.75 in cap health at this moment, March 25th, and spent it on who? That's the, and then people were like, well, they're not going all in. And I was thinking to myself, like, okay, so what would be like an all-in move? Like Julian Blackmon's a safety that's still out there that I like. Like there's some guys, but is that like an all-in move? And if you really explore their current cap space right now, I think they have enough money to go get all the guys that we've been saying, like the Brandon Scherff, Calais Campbell, Will Hernandez, Reisner, guys like that. They have the cap space for that. So I just want, and I wanted to ask him this because I think he probably felt the same way I felt, is like this notion that somehow leaving 11.75 in cap space, which I do think they're going to get back because they can just cash that out and then change the designation of the money and get that cap space back anyway, as Andre just kind of explained. But this notion that somehow, like, had they done that, they would have signed like what, Milt Williams or something. Like, no, like you wouldn't have got like that. So that's the part that was killing me over the weekend. I just couldn't get it. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I think for me, this is just me speaking for me, and I'm not thinking that my take is superior to anybody.
Careful, they'll use it.
I know. If they weren't getting Will Fries, I don't see like I was a Mekhi Becton guy, right? For some reason, the Bengals aren't in on him. But if you're not getting Will Fries, like I was not so gung-ho about Tevin Jenkins. And the reason why was because of the back history and the issues with him from that standpoint. And clearly it wasn't just the Bengals that were out on him not wanting to invest in that back that he has, right? Because you saw the Browns ended up signing him. So either the Browns are trading somebody or they're bringing him in. And I still don't think we have the numbers on that, right? We still haven't gotten reported what the numbers were. My issue was with Riley Reif, what happened? Not that Riley Reif had an injury history, but unfortunately he got hurt, right? Then we had the Trent Brown situation.
Lyle, before you get to Trent, Lyle
Collins was another one. He had back issues, right? Like we knew that beforehand. Friends of the show that we talked to, since they say we don't have sources, friends that we talked to during that time before Lyle signed, one of them told me, is his back okay? I don't know. I don't even know if his back is okay before we sign him. So I just didn't want to get into a situation where you give Tevin Jenkins the money and we're still running out someone like Jackson Kirkland because Tevin Jenkins isn't in there because of the back. So that was where I was at with the Tevin Jenkins thing. I think obviously he's an upgrade over those guys, but at what risk is it? Because if he's not playing week 17 or if he's not playing in the playoffs, what is the point of me signing this guy anyway? We just did that with Sheldon Rankins, which that's not no fault to Sheldon Rankins. You can't control certain things that happens. Right. Prayers up to him and everything. Glad that he's coming back for the Texans this season, but I just can't spend money with someone that's not going to play and has an injury history like Tevin Jenkins. Like that's what we've seen. Like I think Mon said it in the group chat that he had a friend that was a Bears fan. Great player. It's just he's never available to play. And so for me, I just, and if you take him out of it, it's like, unless you got Will Fries or Mekhi Becton, who was this person out there that you were going to grab that the Bengals still can't get right now?
That was my whole sentiment, and I hadn't seen that. There over the weekend, I didn't tweet that much. I was like reading a bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. And one, what, like I said, it's been irking me. I think you could tell it's been irking me. It's like this notion that we let stars go. Like the biggest star that I can remember leaving the Bengals is like Corey Dillon. Like Ocho was like 31 when he rolled out. Like Carson, we know about that situation, but you know what I mean? It wasn't like we let it roll out.
Not any stars that were like
they had to between Leon Hall and Joseph. Like I remember a lot of different
franchise players is probably what you want to say. They don't let go of franchise players. Guys that are the face of the franchise. I wouldn't say Jesse Bates is a face of a franchise.
He's not. Like, these are hard decisions to make, and that happens every single thing. And that happens every single year. Currently, right now, I keep on saying this. The 49ers just lost 12 plus players. And I would, if y'all go look at that list, there's about 6 players I deem like at the top of their class, like in my opinion. 8-10 of them Pro Bowl worthy, like big time players that were all lost in one all season just because they went all in, trying to go all in for the gusto. Ayuk gets hurt. Purdy doesn't perform like he's supposed to. They had a bunch of injuries, all these different things. And in the back end of it is once it's now time to pay Purdy after all those guarantees and all that stuff like that, them dudes had over $80 million in dead cap hit. Do you know what that would do to our front office is nothing like that, right? Yeah. If that were to happen to the Bengals, I don't think people are thinking logically about the opposite end of that, because think about it. It took us 10 years from 2005 to get to 2015. Can you imagine an all season where you lose all of that and you're taking in all that dead cap money of guys that just didn't work out in free agency? One part of me says you should go on it. I do think that they should go and get the guards and go get all these different guys. And like you were just kind of exploring, is like the guys that I think will make us Super Bowl contenders or whatever, because I don't feel like we're Super Bowl contenders quite yet. The guys that I would consider aren't the top of the food chain. Milton Williams, that to me, that's kind of risky to put that type of money. It's the Calais Campbells of the world. It's Brandon Scherff. It's those guys that are filling in at those spots, or it might be a safety that's at a lower yielding play, position that I think could go do it like in the off season, and it isn't top of the food chain money. And I that was the one thing over the weekend that really irked me. It was like hearing people totally like flip around something that I think all Bengals fans would agree for at least 10 plus years. We kept so many people around that shouldn't have been kept around, that they should have left out. They probably
I think what it is they kept their star players. They have struggled to keep their very good players that may not be superstars, where they kind of have a potential replacement for them. So like Jonathan Joseph, they still had Leon Hall. So like they could have gone the extra mile and did what they did with Tee Higgins, but they didn't. Right? Then they had, Marvin Jones. That wasn't really, I think a lot of people forget with the Marvin Jones situation. Marvin Jones, they wanted to pay Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones
wanted to be a number one.
So that was a little bit of a different situation. Kevin Zeitler is the one that I look at and I'm like, man, that was a philosophy thing with them. They didn't want to pay guards.
Think about the Whitworth one. In hindsight, it is the most colossal mistake that you can make. The Whitworth and the Bates one are two conversations that go hand in hand to me. Like they're the same like kind of concept. The Bengals come with this crazy plan for what is to come, right? They went and drafted 2 tackles, first round and second round, right? It's at some point you gotta move on. This guy's now 30-something years old. He hasn't fallen off a cliff. At the time, I thought it was a big mistake to move on from Whitworth. And as time has gone on, it's looked like one of the biggest mistakes that they ever made. But I would be remiss, and it would be like very disingenuous to say that they didn't have like a plan though. Like they went.
The only issue with that, if we never saw Cedric Ogbuehi or Jake Fisher, then I would be completely fine with it.
Right.
The issue was that, and they avoided it this year. Like when we saw Jermaine Burton this year, right? We knew Jermaine Burton, there wasn't an answer. He wasn't going to be Tee Higgins. If we moved on from Tee Higgins and we put Jermaine Burton in there, I don't think anybody feels like it would be set up for success. The issue with the Cedric Ogbuehi thing was we saw how bad he was. He was so bad that they had to add another year to Witt's contract. I just wish that they would have moved on.
Did you like Jake Fisher though?
No.
Like okay, so I liked Jake Fisher at the time, but I didn't think he was Whitworth level. I
get what they were doing with drafting both of them because you needed to, but they just missed on both of them. So it was
but imagine this. Imagine you drafted just like we're about to have a conversation about the draft coming up, right? Yeah. Say you drafted Myles Murphy in the first round, which you did, right?
Right.
You have to play him, and it could be Whitworth. Like you have to play him.
Yeah,
there's no way that you cannot play him. So once you make the decision to go and draft the guy first, second, third round, that's why even Burton still comes up. And I think most fans are like, I saw people talking in the comments. They're like, yeah, get Burton off the team. third round pick is not like a 7th round pick.
You can't move on from Burton this early. I think.
But you see what I'm saying? Like with Myles Murphy,
when do you move around? When do you move on? Is it year 3? Is it like because like you also don't want to handicap yourself too, right? And be like, all right, we got this liability on the team. I think by year 3, if you're not who you're supposed to be, maybe after that you kind of decide to move on. So
it could be sooner than that. If Myles Murphy came in there and he was overweight and something messed up, like you could move on from a guy like immediately. But I will say this: a guy like Myles Murphy, I'm just using him as an example. Yeah, that's come in, put his head down, done everything that you asked him, no off the field problems. When he gets his chances, looks pretty good, above average at times, right? Yeah. To draft that in the first round and then just leave it is also a form of malpractice as well, too. Because if you're going to go collectively as a unit and say we're all in on whether everybody in the room agrees on it or not, once we make a pick that early, that guy's got to play. And I've always said that since Myles Murphy had came there, and I feel the same way about Dax Hill, right? And that goes to my point with the Whitworth thing and everything like that is too. It's like, yes, Jesse Bates was a better talent at the time, but remember, Jesse Bates was also developed. Jesse Bates was a guy that was drafted out of Wake Forest, and a lot of people didn't really know that much about him when we drafted him. That's true. Guys like Battle and guys like Dax Hill, they were on everybody's radar as one of the best safeties in those drafts, right? So you had a red shirt year with him where he's learning under Jesse Bates and everything like that. And I'm not saying that makes it all right, but it is a form of you can't keep everybody. And sometimes, I think we focus on those people, and that's why I brought those guys up, whatever. Mm-hmm. But not even just of it. I don't think the national perception of sometimes, what about when the Bengals did go and make the decision to go get a DJ Reader? What about when they did move on from the right Carl Lawson and get a Trey Hendrickson? What about when they did take a chance on a Chido Awuzie and get after he came off of an injury? What about when they signed Eli Apple as a 5th option at cornerback, but he started CB2 for damn near 2 years on an NFL football team and went to a Super Bowl? If you're going like this is the thing that I was saying when Perrotta was on, is that a lot of people are very quick to condemn the Bengals, and a lot of people that are in favor of the Bengals too. And I think it's very disingenuous to not include those as part of the conversation, because when you don't include those with the conversation, it makes me feel as though like it's an agenda with it. Because I recognize that the Whitworth one is a mistake, the Bates one is a mistake. But you also have to give them credit for things that they've done well, too. And you also have to give the Bengals credit, too, for a lot of things that they got going right now. And Perrotta was pointing out how as a number 1 option of Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins, that's the dream for a lot of fans. Like, for me, that's a big deal because you hope to go to the draft and get 2 wide receivers that are that dominant, that good. And what's the craziest, sexiest position in football? It's wide receiver. And you got a quarterback that's a top 3 quarterback throwing the football to him. Like, that's crazy to me. And the Bengals did it. And a lot of people have been trying to do it, and they can't. You know what I mean? And they can't. And I think that people just got to be real with themselves. And I think you saw that Michael Irvin clip yesterday, and it said, "What wins championships? Points. You know what I mean? Like, you got the greatest defense in the world, but I have to score more points than you at some point." And I think right now the Jamar Chase and the Tee Higgins contract, I don't really care too much about what other people think. I care about us, but I will celebrate the hell out of this contract to the end of time. Nobody can tell me, but they should have did. I don't care.
This
is lit. Like that.
I'm gonna be honest with you. We kind of talked about this, and I said, bro, if this happens, because we didn't know if it was, but we were like, if this happens, bro, that's gonna be like one of the greatest days on Twitter. And it was for me. I mean, I'm still on a high with it. I'm like I said on Twitter, I'm not telling people to fan how they fan. If you want to, be an analyst and do that, that's fine with me. I'm not doing that, bro. I got Tee Higgins and I got Jamar Chase. I can still sign Trey Hendrickson. I can still now. If you were to come to me and say, okay, now you can't do any of this stuff now, Then I'm gonna get into the analysis side of it. But the fact that they can still sign a guard, sign Trey, and the free agency class is trash, like it's a little different for me. Like if the free agency class was actually good, but it's not. Like that part of it makes me feel like I don't really see it. And at that time, when free agency was kicking off, they were concentrating on locking these deals in with these guys. And here's the other thing that I'll say as well. You can talk about what they did with the cap and all of that. They still got Tee Higgins at a discount, right? Like they were not supposed to be able to get Tee Higgins for the price that they did.
Right.
The other thing that I don't think enough people,
$32 million on the open market.
Yeah, the other thing that I don't think people are talking about is look at the deal that happened right after we signed them. Derek Stingley gets 89 of a $90 million contract guaranteed. Do you think that Dave Mulligetta, the next time that he has to go and get another wide receiver or somebody, like, what if they have 90% guarantees in their deal? Guess what? The Bengals didn't have to do that for Jamar Chase or Tee Higgins. So it's already setting the precedent of this could be a win long term. They're locked in now. So 4 or 5 years from now, we're talking about this 11 million right now or this 12 million. That could be pennies compared to what some of these other guys are going to earn and get guaranteed. I mean, Mulligetta, when he did the deal with Jalen Waddle, I believe that was like an 80% plus or something like that guaranteed money. So who's to say that he doesn't start changing the market, and not just him? Because I hate when people just make it a David Mulligetta thing. Like Drew Rosenhaus and these guys exist too. Like he's doing his thing, but there's other people that put priorities on guarantees too. And what's to say once that market starts to change, like the corner market did, we could see more guarantees happening for receivers. So for me, they did what they needed to do, bro. And they made sure that they got Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase. Again, I'm not telling anybody how to celebrate it. This was something that wasn't supposed to be possible, and the Bengals were able to do it.
I'm on a high from it. I swear. I just whatever people thought was gonna happen this all season, it was always sign a big three for me. And
I mean, one step away from doing it, bro. I can't complain if they do. If they do that, I don't know how I can criticize them for doing that.
They did. I think they're one step away from it. I think it's inevitable unless somebody comes out of nowhere and gives us an offer that we can't refuse. And at that point, we've explored that too. I think that's a late first. Andre said an early second. I wouldn't take an early second for him. I would
before we get out of here though. Did you talk about your thoughts on Chido signing with the Ravens?
No, but I did want to talk about something before we get to that, and that would be.
Now they call Tee Higgins, or you say number 5s. Either way, you'll be winning. It's them hot honey lemon peppers. Now they call Tee Higgins, or you say number 5s. Either way, you'll be winning. It's them hot honey lemon peppers. Now they call Tee Higgins, or you say number 5s. Either way, you'll be winning. And much love to Mama T, Uno and CTB. MB's got Bengals wings, and now we just added T's. 9 to 5 winning things, gritty for Uno wings. We say yes, Scherff now, like X's and be saying that T got them new wings, only at MB's. Hot honey lemon peppers, now you can call them T's. Hot honey lemon peppers, now they call Tee Higgins, or you say number 5s. Either way, you'll be winning. It's them hot honey lemon peppers, now they call Tee Higgins, or you say number 5.
That was nice. I ain't gonna lie.
669 Justice Court in Loveland, Ohio. Shout out to them number 5s, them Tee Higgins. You can go and get them hot honey lemon pepper. They've got those fresh at Midwest Best Barbecue. You can get those. You can get the Uno wings. You can get the CTB wings. You can get the Dillinators. They got them all there. They're all delicious. Make sure that you check them out. Tim, aka Jeezy, we're gonna call him Teezy, over at Midwest Best Barbecue. Diehard Bengals fans, great food, great people. Definitely make sure that you guys check them out. Yes, T was doing it down the way in the video. You already know what time it is.
And you know what y'all need to do. Get ready for opening day with the Reds coming up in 2 days. Make sure you put those orders in with Midwest Best. Make sure you get those wings going. get everything copacetic at the house and get it cooking. You were talking about Chido Bay signing with the Ravens. Andre talked about
like that, bro. I'm gonna keep it a buck. The fact that he gave the ops a discount, like,
you know why? That was that Titans paid that bill. That's the Titans.
Yeah, the Titans paid the bill, but I'm like, he didn't have nobody else. Like, you had to go to the Ravens, bro. You had to go to the Ravens.
Like, you think about that scheme. If you think about that scheme and how it funnels everything into those situations for those corners that help them out a lot, it's perfect for him. Now, because you know how they are with disguising those blitzes and getting pressure on the quarterback from all of those different angles, they help their secondary out a lot. And Joe Burrow is the person, I think, if you ever watch him in an interview talk about those Ravens after Wink, life after that defense is helped out so many people and made them look how they made Geno Stone look. You know Chido
is not to go from him rocking the Migos playoff hoodies and him lining up against them in purple. Nah, bro. Like, friend of the show.
It's gonna be an impact like that.
I'm sick at him right now, man. I'm sick at Chido right now. I'm not.
What do you think his impact is gonna be on the Ravens, though?
I mean, you know, I respect Chido. I get people saying that Chido lost a step, but even Chido losing a step, the knowledge, bro, the knowledge of him like playing day in, day out with Uno and T. I'm not saying that he's gonna stop them, but the fact that he's gonna be telling that to the Kyle Hamiltons and the Marlon Humphreys of the world, and just like that's just nasty, bro. Like, we gave you a big opportunity to come to the Natty, and like, to me, you was a Bengals lifer, and now you with the purple people, like. I can't, like, yeah, bro, nah, bro.
If he was like, I would be more sick if they would have got Jair or something like that, me personally. I know what you're saying about the education and knowledge.
Oh, yeah, Jair is a better corner, but it's just, one is, I rock with Chido, bro.
Let me explain.
I rock with Chido. I can't rock with him no more when you put on that purple, bro. I can't rock with, you a Raven now. Like, you a op now. I can't rock with it, bro. That's the only thing for me is if Mike Hilton were to go and put on a Ravens jersey right now, I couldn't rock with it, bro. Like, and that's the homie, like, but right. I couldn't be
So let me explain. I hear what you're saying. Yeah. I just think that's bound to happen. It kind of reminds me of the draft, like where we're going to watch a lot of the players that we like go to other teams.
They can't control that though.
Hold on. Let me just get this out. Hold on. So the one thing that I just think is the difference though is that I just don't think that he could stop our wide receivers, and I don't think that he could stop Joe Burrow. Whereas me personally, if there was a player of Jair, like if he was Jair's talent level and had that same expertise, then yeah, I would think it would be more impactful. I think there's a world that Chido could go out there to Baltimore and might not even start or even do anything. Once they draft, they're probably going to draft the corner early. He might just be their CB3 for real. Their fans in the comment section and people that are like rock with the Ravens, they're not looking at him like CB2. They're looking at him like a CB3. And they got a pretty good cornerback room. So I don't really think the impact of him is going to be there. I could be wrong though. So I don't know. I just think
to me, I'm just sorry because it's like, bro, you was a Bengal in my eyes. So
was he?
To me, it's like, I don't know, bro.
You think people on a national level, you think people really associate? I think most people associate him with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think if you're a Cowboys fan, you do. I think most people now, though, like where Chido became a top corner in the league, arguably, was in Cincinnati. Because and with Dallas, he was kind of considered. They was hating on him at first, and I remember when we signed Chido, I did a crossover with Voch Lombardi, and he was in the minority, and he was like, yeah, most people don't like him, but he was like, I watched the tape. Like, Chido's pretty good. I think he's going to be a solid guy for y'all. And I feel like his rise to stardom in terms of people like respecting him as a top corner for him to get the deal that he got in Tennessee was in Cincinnati. So, I mean, to me, it's just nasty because you're taking a discount to play with the ops. Like, I don't know if he got pressure with the Natty because we let him go and we didn't bring him back or whatever, but it is what it is. I think like you said, I don't think it's a Jair Alexander type addition for them. I still think he's good though. I don't think he's like gonna get cooked every time, but we'll see. Time will tell. If he does get cooked, I'm gonna have to talk about it. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna have to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It does kind of suck to see them get, good, like a better roster period to me. I don't.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I don't think there's nobody that can stop Joe Burrow, Tee Higgins, and Jamar. And so I think I kind of lead with that. Did you have any other closing thoughts?
That's it, my brother. That's it. Appreciate Andre Perrotta. Appreciate all of y'all. Y'all that are watching right now, tap in. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of the deals that are being done by the Bengals. Did they make the right move? Let us know what guests you guys want to hear from in the comments. Let us know what you guys think. Hit that subscribe button. If you aren't subscribed to the Wincinnati podcast, do us a favor. That helps us out so much. You guys help the channel grow so much. This is our community, Wincinnati. So we're all in this together. We can't do this without you guys. So we need you guys to hit that like, that comment, all of that. Share this with your friends. We truly appreciate that. That helps the channel grow bigger.